The Living Daylights 1987 marks a new era in the James Bond franchise, as Timothy Dalton steps into the role of the iconic secret agent. Directed by John Glen, this film reintroduces Bond to the world with a more serious, grounded approach. But does it live up to the legacy of its predecessors? Let's break it down. The story follows James Bond as he uncovers a complex web of betrayal, international intrigue, and espionage involving the Soviet Union, the British Mi-6, and a shady arms deal. The plot centers on the defection of a Russian general and Bond's mission to help him escape from East Berlin, but things quickly spiral out of control. First off, let's talk about Timothy Dalton's portrayal of James Bond. After Roger Moore's lighter, more comedic take on the character, Dalton brings a much-needed sense of gravitas. He's rough around the edges, intense, and unapologetically tough, but still capable of charm when the situation calls for it. Dalton's Bond is a far cry from the smooth talker we've seen before. And this new approach was a refreshing change for fans who wanted a more grounded, serious 007. Now, let's talk about the Bond girl, Cara Malavi, played by Mariam Diabo. Unlike many of the Bond girls from previous films, Cara isn't a femme fatale or a spy herself. She's an innocent cello player caught in the middle of the political intrigue. This sets her apart from previous Bond women, who often had more active roles in the story. Of course, what's a Bond movie without thrilling action scenes? The Living Daylights delivers with high-speed chases, daring stunts, and intense shootouts. One of the most memorable sequences involves a daring chase through a narrow mountain pass in a jeep, which is both thrilling and tense. It's also worth noting that the film's action is more down-to-earth, compared to the over-the-top spectacle of later Bond films, which some fans really appreciate. The villains in this film are no slouches either. General Koskov, played by Jerome Crabb, is a defector with a lot of secrets, while the eccentric arms dealer Brad Whitaker, played by Joe Don Baker, adds a touch of unpredictability. These characters, while not the most memorable in Bond history, serve the plot well, providing the necessary conflict and tension. Another standout aspect of The Living Daylights is its Cold War backdrop. The movie taps into the tension of the time, with much of the action set in Eastern Europe, including the high-stakes world of espionage, arms deals, and political machinations. This gives the film a sense of urgency and realism, in contrast to the more fantastical elements seen in some of the other Bond films. James Bond is sent to investigate a KGB policy to kill all enemy spies, and uncovers an arms deal that potentially has major global ramifications. James Bond 007's mission is to firstly, organize the defection of a top Soviet general. When the general is recaptured, Bond heads off to find why an ally of General Koskov was sent to murder him. Bond's mission continues to take him to Afghanistan, where he must confront an arms dealer known as Brad Whitaker. Everything eventually reveals itself to Bond. 00 section of Mi-6 is chosen for a test to penetrate the radar installation at Gibraltar, with British SAS at full alert to intercept them. Agent 004 is intercepted and killed by an unknown assailant, who leaves with a note smired Spionam. Agent 007, James Bond Timothy Dalton pursues, and after a lengthy fight inside a jeep, he manages to kill the assailant when the jeep falls off a cliff and blows up. Bond is assigned to help KGB General Georgy Koskov Jerome Crabb defect, covering his escape from a concert hall in Bratislava, Czechoslovakia. Saunders Thomas Wheatley is the section chief whom Koskov contacted for the defection and has planned his escape. During the mission, Bond notices that a KGB sniper is a female cellist from the orchestra. Disobeying his orders from Saunders to kill the sniper, he shoots the rifle from her hands, then uses the Trans-Siberian pipeline to smuggle Koskov across the border to the west. Bond knows that the girl was not a professional assassin. She didn't know how to hold a rifle, and also Q can't find any record of her among the KGB. Q Desmond Llewellyn, M. Robert Brown, the head of Mi-6 and Bond's superior, Miss Moneypenny Caroline Bliss, M's secretary. In his post-defection debriefing, Koskov informs Mi-6 that the KGB's old policy of smert spionam, meaning death to spies, has been revived by General Leonid Pushkin. John Rhys-Davies, the new head of the KGB. Koskov is later abducted from the safe house by a KGB agent dressed like a milkman and assumed to have been taken back to Moscow. Bond is directed to track down Pushkin in Tangier and kill him. To forestall further killings of agents and escalation of tensions between the Soviet Union and the West, Bond agrees to carry out the mission when he learns that the assassin who killed 004 as depicted in the pre-title sequence left a note bearing the same message, smert spionam. Moneypenny tracks the cello girl in Bratislava and Bond decides to investigate her first. Bond returns to Bratislava to track down the cellist, Kara Malavi Mariam Diabo. Bond sees Kara being taken away by Pushkin from the tram. Inside her cello, Bond finds the rifle with 2 blank bullets. He also finds a note with Kara's address. Bond finds out that Koskov's entire defection was staged, and that Kara is actually Koskov's girlfriend. Bond convinces Kara that he is a friend of Koskov's and knew about his fake defection, and persuades her to accompany him to Vienna, supposedly to be reunited with him. They escape Bratislava while being pursued by the KGB. Bond evades them in a well-stocked car supplied by Q, and then using Kara's cello case as a sled to slide across into Austria, crossing over the border into Austria. Meanwhile, Pushkin meets with an arms dealer, Brad Whitaker Joe Don Baker, in Tangier, informing him that the KGB is canceling an arms deal previously arranged between Koskov and Whitaker. Whitaker takes himself to be a great general, but Pushkin insults him, saying that he was a West Point dropout for cheating and had criminal links who financed his first arm deals. Pushkin threatens Whitaker that he knows he and Koskov are working together on something. During his brief tryst with Malavi in Vienna, Bond visits the Prater to meet his Mi-6 ally, Saunders Thomas Wheatley, who discovers a history of financial dealings between Koskov and Whitaker. It was Whitaker who bought an expensive Stradivarius for Kara from an auction in NYC. As he leaves their meeting, Saunders is killed by Koskov's henchman Necros Andreas Wisniewski, who again leaves the message smert spionam. Bond and Kara promptly leave for Tangier, where Bond confronts Pushkin in the hotel room of Pushkin's mistress, Rubovich Virginia Hay, who disavows any knowledge of smert spionam and reveals that Koskov is evading arrest for embezzlement of government funds. Pushkin tells Bond to trust him and not Koskov. Bond and Pushkin then join forces, and Bond fakes Pushkin's assassination, inducing Whitaker and Koskov to progress with their scheme. Meanwhile, Kara contacts Koskov, who tells her that Bond is actually a KGB agent, and convinces her to drug him so that he can be captured. That night when Bond returns to Kara, she drugs him as per instructions. Before passing out, Bond warns Kara that Koskov wanted her dead, as she knew too much, which is why she was told to hold a rifle during his escape, to ensure that Bond kills her to eliminate the threat to Koskov's defection. Koskov, Necros, Kara, and the captive Bond fly to a Soviet air base in Afghanistan, where Koskov betrays Kara and imprisons her, along with Bond. The pair escape from the Soviet makeshift prison by using Bond's gadgets, and in doing so, free a condemned prisoner, Cameron Shah Art Malik, leader of the local Mujahideen. Bond and Malavi discover that Koskov is using Soviet funds converted to diamonds to buy a massive shipment of opium from the Mujahideen, intending to keep the profits from sales in the US and Europe, with enough left over to supply the Soviets with their arms, for which Koskov has taken an advance, and buy Western arms from Whitaker. With the Mujahideen's help, Bond plants a bomb aboard the cargo plane carrying the opium, but is spotted and has no choice but to barricade himself in the plane. Meanwhile, the Mujahideen attack the airbase on horseback and engage the Soviets in a gun battle. During the battle, Kara drives a jeep into the cargo hold of the plane as Bond takes off, and Necros also leaps aboard at the last second. Koskov is injured as he drives head-on into a landing plane on the runway. After a struggle, Bond throws Necros to his death and deactivates the bomb. Bond then notices Shaw and his men being pursued by Soviet forces. He reactivates the bomb and drops it out of the plane and onto a bridge, blowing it up and helping Shaw and his men escape the Soviets. The plane subsequently crashes, destroying the drugs, while Bond and Kara escape. Bond returns to Tangier to kill Whitaker, infiltrating his estate with the help of his ally Felix Leiter John Terry. And Pushkin arrests Koskov, ordering him to be executed before sending him back to Moscow. Sometime later, Kara is the solo cellist in a Vienna performance. Cameron Shaw and his men jostle in during the intermission and are introduced to now diplomat General Gogol Walter Gotell and the Soviets. After her performance, Bond surprises Kara in her dressing room, and they embrace. In conclusion, The Living Daylights offers a fresh take on James Bond, with a tougher, more serious 007 leading the way through a story filled with intrigue, action, and unexpected twists. While it may not have the same level of cultural impact as some of its predecessors, it remains a solid entry in the franchise that helped set the tone for the future of the Bond series. If you enjoyed this deep dive into The Living Daylights, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more Bond content and movie reviews. What do you think of Timothy Dalton's portrayal of 007? Let me know in the comments below.